So this is lore, and we're going to talk about whether or not Mary Winchester has been brainwashed. We're going to talk about what it is, and we're going to compare it to some stuff. So our main source for today is a 2023 article on how stuff works, on how brainwashing works by Julia Layton and Ilea Hoyt. And according to them, their definition of brainwashing is that it refers to both coercive persuasion and a systematic process aimed at altering an individual's beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors through various psychological and manipulative means. And so we're not talking about just advertising influencing you. We're talking about a systematic process breaking down somebody's belief, something that usually occurs in isolation, right? And did you know that while recognized as a war crime by the Geneva Conventions, brainwashing is not technically illegal? Huh. Like, so it's a war crime, but there's things against fraud, but there's not really anything against, you doing this to somebody. It's not illegal. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I don't know what the law would be, but
yeah, I'm like, how would you write that? I don't know. Never mind.
I don't know. Okay. There's very different versions of what kind of brainwashing is, but to make this simple for Mary Winchester, we're going to do Robert J. Lifton's defined steps. And he got this based off of prisoners of Korean War and Chinese war camps. So those were prisoners who came out praising communism, right? And they're like, how is this happening? So he studied a whole bunch of cases of those. And so he came up with these 3 stages and various steps. So the first stage is called breaking down the self. And during this stage, there are 4 steps involved in destroying a person's sense of self. So the first one is an assault on identity. And this involves removing the core beliefs that make the ego or the self. And the example of how self works again included, you are not a soldier, or you are not defending freedom. So in Mary's case, I would say that they were taking away her identity as a mother, right? One of her core systematic beliefs about herself is that she was a mother. And I think that's one of the things that they were assaulting a lot, keeping Dean away from her, or answer the phone. And there's a lot of this that were because we don't get to see her whole process, but I think that's what they were doing. Any other ways you think her identity was being assaulted?
I mean, I think that they were just trying to not take her back to, Lady Bevel says that they're trying to make her back into Mary Campbell. Right. So anything that happened after that, which, I mean, your identity evolves with you and your experiences. So they're trying to revert to a perceived identity.
All right, the second step is guilt. And the victim is drowned with guilt and are severely attacked for a transgression, so that the targets begin to feel a general sense that everything they do is wrong. I think this is Lady Bevel did that in this episode when she threw how fucked up John Winchester was after her death and how he was the world's shittiest father. So making her it was like kind of made her feel guilty about dying and just about also just that she wasn't a good mom, right? So if you were a better mother, you wouldn't have given your kid up to Azazel to save John Winchester. So here's all this guilt that we're throwing on you about that.
And here's the domino effect of what happened because you did that. And your kids are going to be stuck in a world with monsters because they grew up as hunters if you don't join the British Men of Letters. So you have to do all these horrible things because otherwise this is all your fault.
It's all your fault. The third step is self-betrayal. And this is after the disorientation and oodles of guilt. The victim is made to denounce those who held the same belief systems as them, family, friends, etc. And I think we first start seeing this when she is just starting to lie to the boys, even though I think that was not necessarily part of brainwashing. I think that was the first steps in the British Men of Letters trying to turn her, right? When they got her to be okay with lying to the boys. And then just also the isolation from them, right? Not calling them back while she was on the road with them. And then in the end, she freaking pulled a gun on them, which I think is the ultimate sign of, I am denouncing you.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
And leaving them to die,
Yeah.
And the fourth step in this stage is the breaking point. And this is where the victim loses it and breaks down, setting them up to be converted to a new belief system. And we saw that.
As Lady Bevel says, realigned,
right? And we see Mary mentally breaking down and unable to tell what's real. and she sobs and she's breaking down to catch. And we don't see what happens in between the bunker and the scene for Mary, but they do something that convinces her to go to the bunker and turn on the boys, right?
Yeah.
And even in the deleted scenes, that wasn't in there. And I do kind of feel like that was
one more session of.
Yeah, I kind of was a cop out from the writer's part to not have that in there. So, or maybe they just thought it would be redundant. But I would like to see how we got from Mary kneeling on the floor crying to Mary holding a gun on her son.
Yeah.
Right.
There's asleep.
That is
it implied a longer time frame had passed too than had. Because I feel like there would have been at least another session there, and there wasn't. But anyways, that's
the first stage. And I think Mary Winchester went through all of those stages. So at this point, up until this point, I was saying, oh yeah, she's going under the brainwashing steps. All right. So stage 2, this is the possibility of salvation. In the second stage, the individual is given a promise of a way to a solution to end their suffering, creating hope and dependence, as now their brainwasher is the only way to get relief. And the first stage in this is leniency, when the victim is offered something nice or just a reprieve from the abuse because they were already in a broken down state. The victim feels that a small act is much bigger than it is. And with this one, I thought maybe, when Catchway is giving Mary like some kind of reprieve at the end of that breakdown, when he's like, it's going to get easier. I think you could tell there is some sort of trying to give her something there. But I also feel like maybe this is something that we would be missing in that scene, right?
Yeah.
Like something that for this to end, we'll give you this, right? So, and she was so broken down that so vulnerable that anything would probably feel good.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. And the second stage is the compulsion to confess. In this state, the victim is given an opportunity confession. And I'm not really getting this from Mary and Lisa and what we've seen, but also maybe not be vibing with this stuff. Okay, so they said this was for the first time in the brainwashing process. The target is faced with the contrast between the guilt and pain of identity assault and the sudden relief of leniency. The target may feel a desire to reciprocate the kindness offered to them. And at this point, the agent may present the possibility of confession as a means to relieving guilt and pain.
I mean, almost with when she's asking if it's now easier to hurt people she loves, but not really. That's really not there because she's not really getting the reprieve either from it. So
I almost am kind of wondering though if them sleeping together was also part of that, right? She's part of the process and part of the brainwashing, right? Because it was giving her something and she was giving something back, right? Gross, but maybe.
All right.
Third step, channeling of guilt. The victim's old belief system is now a source of shame, but this new belief system will relieve you of that suffering. So I think in the car, Mary seems to be on board with British Men of Letters.
I think she's on the path for that. I think that's bought in because that's why she wouldn't be talking about people she loved, hurting people she loved otherwise. But at the same time, she's clearly willing to do it. So she's on that train.
And the fourth and last step in this stage is releasing guilt. It says if they only denounce their old belief system, everything will be great. And I think her actions in the bunker seem to be clearly she is denouncing her old belief system. She's not saying much. She really doesn't say much to either of them during this.
She's doing it. Yeah.
All right. And our final stage 3, is called rebuilding the self. And this is the time to make a new person based on a new belief system. And the first step is progress and harmony. The victim is made to feel it is their choice to pursue their new life over their old one. Physical comfort will come with the new life as well. And we kind of get this Mary's promise that things will be good as she just continues. I think the car scene at the end is a little bit of this as well. This is the life that I'm on and this is where we're going, even though I just left my children to die, which seems strange. And the final step of the stages is final confession and rebirth, when the victim chooses their new path, rejecting their old belief system. This is often accompanied by a ritual or a ceremony, especially if you're in a cult situation. And I think the bunker scene can also be this, but it can also be something we haven't seen yet, right? Like when he's her final step over. Although you can't do, I feel we haven't seen it yet, but you just killed your children. That's huge.
She could still save them.
She can still save them, right? We're not them yet.
She hasn't completely abandoned them yet. So I think that would be the final. I don't think we're all there. We're close, which is crazy.
But it's crazy how far she came. All those things. And again, this is one very old man. He died. Lifton died and I did a quick look at his wiki. I mean, problematic things about you. I'm like, okay, you think you're fine. I don't think you were. I didn't know. You just never know before you start charting someone's list these days.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, these are based on his ideas of brainwashing in terms of that process. And I think for the most part, I do feel like Mary checked almost all the boxes.
I agree. I feel like somebody probably followed a similar, like they had to have known a process like that to do this successfully as a writer and follow that.
Yeah. So, but definitely check. Mary Winchester was brainwashed.
Yep. It's so wild.